Well, I can honestly say I have never seen so many penises in one film, in one video before in my life, ever. That's where this review is starting. Nymphomaniac, released in 2013, and is directed by Lars von Trier, who we've been talking about this entire week with this trilogy of films all dealing with the topic of depression and the aspects of depression, the different types of depression that one can be feeling. We've dealt with grief, we've dealt with despair, we've dealt with the fear of death and how paralyzing and how freezing that could be when it comes to the aspect of depression. And here with Nymphomaniac, we are dealing with self-loathing depression. And this film is starring Charlotte Gainsbourg, who's become one of my favorite actresses of all time, Stacey Martin, Stellan Skarsgård, Shia LaBeouf, Christian Slater, Jamie Bell, Uma Thurman, Willem Dafoe, and Connie Nielsen. And the reason why we are talking about this depression trilogy from Lars von Trier this week is because, well, first, it was recommended to me by one of my friends from grad school and a great podcaster, a great YouTuber, horror film video reviewer, Craig Draheim. He runs his own YouTube channel and podcast called Bloodhound Picks. I recommend go over there, give him a subscription. Really great stuff that they're doing over there, but he recommended this whole depression trilogy for me. Come to find out, he hasn't even watched Nymphomaniac. So how can you recommend that I watch a movie that's over 5 hours long if you yourself haven't even watched it? Come on, Craig. Yeah, if you had problems sitting through Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is 4 hours, how the fuck do you think I feel with this one? But we're also talking about the Depression Trilogy this week because it is the first week of May, and May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. So what better time to talk about the aspects of depression than when it comes to mental health awareness? I myself have dealt with depression over several years, and there are many people out there who have dealt with it their entire lives, have a much more severe case of depression than I do. I believe it's something that all of us go through at either one point in our lives or all throughout our lives, is this aspect of depression. This voice in the back of our head that's telling us that we're not good enough, or this voice in the back of our head that kind of amplifies all of our fears that we have within ourselves. The most important thing when it comes to dealing with your own personal depression, for me at least, was recognizing that I actually did have depression and that I was suffering from depression. And then when you realize and admit to that, you can realize that there are so many organizations and people out there who are trained to help you and who are trained to help you through this hard time that you're going through. A big organization that I've been promoting this week is AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. There's always someone there who is willing to talk to you and is willing to help you and willing to listen to you and to listen to how you're feeling and to reassure you that yes, you do have value. And to steal a line from Zack Snyder's Justice League, Cyborg said, "I'm not broken and I am not alone." That's what they're there for, to let you know that you are not broken and you are not alone. Seriously, that's going to be a tattoo right around here eventually. I got to get the Batman Superman tattoos that I've been wanting for many, many years. But that line from Cyborg, probably the Cyborg logo too, it's going around right here. Love that line. It's something that I take to heart and I'll never forget. So after saying all of that, let's talk about this story of one woman's sexual adventure throughout her entire life and all the penises that she encounters. One snowy evening, Stellan Skarsgård sees a woman by the name of Jo laying unconscious in the middle of an alleyway. Jo, played by Charlotte Gainsbourg, says that she would like a cup of tea, and Stellan Skarsgård invites her back to his apartment. There she gets cleaned up and is willing to tell the story of her entire life, of how she has become a self-diagnosed nymphomaniac. She discovered her sexuality at a very young age, and Volume 1 of Nymphomaniac deals with her exploration of her own sexuality, how she would find ways to climax and to masturbate as a young child, until eventually she becomes a young teenager and plays different games with her best friend of who can have sex with more men. We also see the strong relationship of her with her father, played by Christian Slater, and how his death later on in life really sparked the descent of Jo's sexual journey. And that's what Volume 2 covers in detail, Jo's struggle with re-achieving her sexual endeavors. But the whole thing is one grand story of one woman's struggle with her acceptance of her sexuality in the public eye, and how she will never apologize for being the way that she is. And that's one of the shitty things about this society, at least our society, our Western society that at least I belong to here in the States. The idea that a woman who is sexually adventurous is labeled as a slut or is looked down upon. How a woman shouldn't be doing that. They should only have one partner ever. And if they have more than one, again, they are labeled as a slut. Whereas if a man went around and slept with a whole bunch of women, or hell, even slept with a whole bunch of men, they would be seen as some type of conqueror, someone who went out and on conquest and has all the belt notches that he could possibly have. One in our society is okay and is looked up to. The other one is looked down upon, and we shun them for shame for being, again, labeled as a slut. I absolutely hate that. And I hope the majority of you out there that watch this review, or at least know me, believe that same way too. We are all mammals, regardless of your sexual identity, however you identify yourself. Man, woman, trans, gay, lesbian, bi, whatever. You're a human being. We're all the same initially. And human beings really like to have sex. And it's okay if you have a lot of partners. It's okay if you have only one partner. There's no criteria, there's no book or rule written down saying, oh, if you have so many different partners, you should be ashamed of yourself. And if you don't have so many, well, you know what? You should also be ashamed of yourself too. There is no rule out there. The only thing that you should keep in mind when you do go down your sexual adventures and you're discovering yourself and what you like is to be safe and to be careful. Though Jo throughout this entire film is being very adventurous and being very courageous, she does get herself into some pretty scary situations. Typically, she comes out of it well on the other side, but they could easily go down a very terrible route where she could be mugged or, even worse, killed. So just know that off the bat. If we're going to talk about sex and someone being sexually adventurous, just know to be safe and to know who you're dealing with, please. With that out of the way now, we have to commend just two wonderful, fine acting performances here. Again, from Charlotte Gainsbourg, and newly here, Stacey Martin, who plays the younger version of Jo that Charlotte Gainsbourg plays later on in the movie. The vulnerability that these two people show and the unwilling to apologize for who they are-ness about their characters is something to be admired. I've said it before in my other reviews, Charlotte Gainsbourg is wonderful. I've never heard of her before this week after seeing this entire trilogy from Lars von Trier. She is one of my favorite actresses. When she is on screen, she is captivating. She is a storyteller with the way she tells a story and the way that she doesn't tell a story. She's captivating, and she's wonderful, she's magnificent, she is amazing. And Stacey Martin does a great job of mirroring what Charlotte Gainsbourg does. When we go to our flashback sequences and we see Stacey Martin as a younger girl, I believe that she ends up being Charlotte Gainsbourg later on in the film. So well, in fact, that at one point, I believe it was in Volume 2, where we're watching Stacey Martin, the actress, on screen, and then out of nowhere, it switches. As we're in the storytelling part, it switches to Charlotte Gainsbourg, and I was like, oh, well, Stacey Martin's gone. We're here with Charlotte. I didn't even notice that happen. That's how perfectly in sync they are as this character Jo. And I like the storytelling aspect of this film. Usually when we get to films where it's someone of an older age or someone telling a story, reliving a story, telling it to a videographer or a researcher or whatever, and the whole film is them going back and telling their story from beginning to where they are now. Usually you don't get the interactions with the person that you're telling the story to. It's just someone begins talking and then we go back and we see the character go from point A to point B to point B to point C and so on. But here, Stellan Skarsgård will interject and will provide some scientific reasoning as to how Jo was acting when she was younger or whatever situation the story is being talked about. And I love that. This is a conversation. This is not just, hey, gather around, kids, and I'll tell you the story about how I was a nymphomaniac and fucked a bunch of people. This is a conversation between two strangers who end up becoming really good friends. Plus, it's also nice that Stellan Skarsgård's character is seen, or at least he seems himself, I'm not sure what the label is. Is he asexual? He doesn't see sex, or he doesn't have a desire for sex, or at least we don't think that he does. I'm not spoiling the ending at all. So to have a woman talk about her sexual adventures to someone that doesn't really look for sex or gets aroused by sex is probably like the best thing someone like her can do, because then she's not worried that, oh, he's gonna be aroused and then the story's gonna stop and he's gonna try to advance on her. Now, I've said this before on my other reviews of Lars von Trier this week. He loves pushing the envelope. He likes taking or fighting against the grain of Hollywood and Hollywood tropes and formulas in their films. And if we're gonna talk about sex, let's actually show real sex happening. We see real sex happening here. Now, come to find out, the actors and actresses that I read off at the top of this review, they were not actually partaking in the sexual happenings in the film. They actually hired adult actors to partake in the sexual acts. So Shia LaBeouf, Stacey Martin would have all these black dots on kind of like their midsection, and then they would choreograph it, and then the adult stars, they would mimic the actions of how the characters perform the scene, and then they would actually mimic it, but with the penetration involved. And then CGI would meld it together. Knowing that that was happening, it's seamless. It is actually quite beautiful. All of these penises and all these vaginas look like they belong to the actual actors. But I love that it doesn't bloat or dramatize or romanticize the idea of having sex. Human beings, that's what we do. We like having sex with each other. Everyone does. Even there are many people out there who are watching this review go, oh my god, they're showing sex on screen. They shouldn't be doing that. I am offended. The majority of us all have sex. We all have the desire to have sex with one another. That's just what humans do. So I applaud this movie if we are going to tackle the topic of nymphomania and someone that has a sex addiction, which I guess I shouldn't be using that because nymphomania, sex addiction are two separate things. One is a self-choice. The other one, the willpower of that person is not necessarily there, and it becomes an addiction. It becomes a problem. But if we're going to go down this road of, hey, this person has a lot of sex with a lot of different people, we actually see the sex happening. And like I said at the top of this review, there are a lot of penises in here, of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds. This film is the I have a dream speech when it comes to showing penises on screen. It's not the size of the penis or the color of their skin, but the content of their character. But I do like how natural this is. This isn't pornographic. It's not fakishly staged on a soundstage or a random house somewhere. This is just an act of real people just having sex in the story. But then when we get to volume 2, we do deal with a lot of really tough and very graphic subjects that personally I don't want to relive again. When she loses all sense of feeling and all sense of touch and she can't orgasm anymore, she goes to a sadist to try to feel something from him beating on her. And that sadist is played by Jamie Bell, which I gotta say is some of the most confusing casting I've ever seen before. The tiny Jamie Bell is a sadist who is using a cat of nine tails on this woman's ass. That was strange. And then we get to really tough subjects like abortion. I'm not a doctor, so I really don't want to watch it happen, but you legit watch a self-imposed abortion happen with no anesthesia. There have been very few times while watching films where I go, no, 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 no. When that scene happened, that's what I was doing the entire time. Images that I will never get out of my head. Yes, I know they happen all the time, and for those that actually do go through with it, or doctors that actually do it, hey, I know it's a standard procedure, but I'm not a doctor. I didn't want to see that. I know it happens, I just didn't want to see that stuff. And that's when I found out that Craig, who recommended this movie to me, hadn't even actually watched it. I texted him saying, abortion scene? Really? And he goes, yeah, I haven't actually watched it. I started it several times, I just couldn't get all the way through it. I'm like, you motherfucker, I'm watching this for you, you asshole. It's okay, he's a cool guy. And as I've said before, Lars von Trier, he is an artist. When a film comes out of his and it's on the screen, at least the ones that I've seen, look like paintings. They look like works of art. This one, I'm not getting that work of art sense here. The feeling, the formula, the cinematography, it's very naturalistic, meaning that it's a slice of life representation of these characters and the world that they live in. There's nothing heightened, there's nothing dramatized about it, it's just all real. So yes, you do get to see scenes where the sex between the two characters is beautiful, but a lot of the times, you get to see kind of the messiness of sex. And again, we also have aspects of nature and finding hope and finding love and finding energy when it comes to nature in this film. It's kind of an underlying theme with all of these movies in this Depression trilogy. The effect that nature has on our soul and on our person and on our mindset. There are moments in this film, especially when young Jo is with her father, Christian Slater, who I will say, this is like his best performance ever. That's not a very high bar to clear, but Christian Slater, he was actually pretty enjoyable here. I don't know what accent he was trying to do, because I think he was trying to be British, but he was also being Christian Slater, so it was like, righto, kind of. I'm Will Scarlet. I interview vampires. But when Jo is younger, she finds happiness when it comes to nature, but then after her father dies and passes away from cancer, which again is actually a very graphic sequence as well, all of a sudden you start seeing the, I don't want to say ugly side of nature, but the bare bones of nature and the loneliness that nature can impose itself upon you. Again, highlighting the aspects of depression when it comes to self-loathing that you constantly are getting from Jo throughout the retelling of this story. She's trying to convince Stellan Skarsgård that she is a terrible person, she is a horrible person, and after I tell you my whole life story, you will realize that, yep, I'm in fact a bad person. And I'm not going to spoil what the end result is, because you need to find that out for yourself. This is a very long film, and it feels long. I had to watch this over several days. I think it took me 3 days to finish it. I watched Volume 1 all on the first day, and then Volume 2, I had to split it up, because after the sadism scene and then the abortion scene, I had to, you know what? Taking a break. I will finish this tomorrow. And then on the third day, wrapping it up. It was one hell of a journey, I will say that. I can't fully give you a recommendation here because this is a very tough subject. Depression is a very tough subject. And then if your mature tastes just aren't there dealing with real sex and real just relationships between people on trains, people in bummed out apartments, in basements, in back alleyways. If you can't deal with that, then this film is probably not for you. But if you are of a mature age, I would say it's a very fascinating watch. I'm going to give Nymphomaniac 3.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I am above average.
Alright everyone, now comes my favorite part of my videos where I randomly select which movie I'm going to be watching next, so let's take a look. Tinker Tailor, Soldier Spy, starring Gary Oldman, who is a spy, I think. I've only watched this once, and it was one of the most difficult experiences I've ever had watching a film. Because it's a British film. I think it's like the definition of British. I know they're speaking English, but I had no idea what they were saying the majority of the time. And what I remember, their volume was really, really soft. They were trying to be secretive because I think they're all like MI6 agents and they're infiltrating someone. I don't know, but then they're also speaking in English accent. You can barely understand what they're saying. I don't know. It was hard. I'm kind of dreading watching this now. But that's what this channel is here for. It's here to force me to watch all the movies that I own, so that's what I'm doing. And maybe my view has changed over the years. Probably not. So guys, have you seen Nymphomaniac? Have you seen the entire Depression trilogy from Lars von Trier? If so, what did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across it because of this video, then comment below and let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell. See you the next time I'm releasing my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time with my review of Tinker Tailor, Soldier Spy. So in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.